Welcome to the IWI interview series, where we explore recovery, connections, and the conversations that help people build meaningful and lasting sobriety. IWI is a mobile app designed to help people in recovery stay consistent, connected, and supported through their recovery journey. Very happy to have Wendy on with us today. She was someone that came highly referred to me, so very excited to have you on today, Wendy. And if you could start us off, maybe just introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your journey to recovery.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Connor. It's a pleasure to be here today. Recovery is something that I never wanted. I came in kicking and screaming. My sobriety date is August 21st, 2010, and I have a sponsor. I actually just talked to her yesterday, and we're going to see each other this Sunday. So I'm in very frequent contact with her. I have a lot of sponsees that I sponsor and take through the steps using the big book. Things about recovery that I never expected to happen have happened for me.
Hmm.
My journey really came from a long line of alcoholics on one side of the family. We thought we were going to escape the alcoholism. My mother and my father, neither of them are alcoholics. But I know that on my mother's side, her mother was an alcoholic. She tried AA. She ended up in a nursing home and never needed to really continue that journey. So she didn't have long-term recovery, but she definitely tried AA. And then all of her siblings, my grandmother's siblings, also had challenges with alcohol. And then on my father's side, I'm not really certain. I think there was definitely some tinges of it amongst grandparents and their siblings as well. My mom raised us. She was a single mom. My parents divorced when I was young, and she raised us. And I think she raised us in a permissive fashion, thinking that if she taught us how to drink like ladies, we wouldn't become alcoholics. I do believe that alcoholism, there's a genetic component to it for certain. Not for everybody, maybe, but definitely for me. I didn't become alcoholic on my first drink, but it progressed very rapidly throughout my adulthood. There were tinges of it through college. I definitely had a few blackouts here and there. And, as early as I can remember, probably 18, 20, 23, definitely had blackouts starting. Got married, got successful careers, got into traveling for business, traveled a lot for business. And that's a great place for a budding alcoholic to start really that path of alcoholism, because I had an expense account and I could really hide my drinking and drink the way I wanted to drink. And that's really what happened for me, is that progressed. My husband was my party buddy. He could party with the best of them and keep up. And then one year, everybody likes to kind of dry out in January. He said, "Well, I think we should, give up the booze for January." And we'd done it before. And I said, "Okay, I think it's a good idea." And he gave up the booze and put it down. He could take, iced tea, water, booze. It didn't matter to him. And I couldn't put the booze down. Um, I think it's important just to mention that my sister's also in recovery. I'm very, very proud of her journey. And she got sober 13 months before I did. And her journey down to her bottom affected me, but I just didn't know anything about alcoholism. I didn't know enough. I mean, I think my mother tried to warn us, but I just didn't know anything about alcoholism. And so while we tried to help my sister, I don't think we were much help at all to her. She
Yeah.
just needed to find her own bottom. And then I got sober in 2010 after the microscope was on me, and I started breaking every rule I ever set for myself, every bar I ever set. I won't drink and drive. I won't drink during the day. I'll only have two drinks at this function. I'd rather have nothing than to only have two drinks. I don't think I ever had two drinks. Like, I wanted, six was like just the beginning, right? I was starting to feel normal around four drinks.
Hmm.
And anyway, my husband finally kind of laid down the law and said, if you don't get some help, I'm going to file for divorce.
Okay.
And when you travel, I'll live at the house with the animals. And when you are home, you can live here and I'll live in an apartment. And, I didn't get a DUI. I didn't have any severe consequences, but I should have.
Yeah.
There's no reason that I escaped my alcoholism alive. There's no reason I didn't kill somebody out on those roads. And there's a lot of that I had a lot of shame and guilt around when I came into recovery that I've since been able to process. But finally, one day, this is, when I hit my bottom, I wasn't a morning drinker, but I was a daily drinker. So I would hold off as long as I could until I'd get into the afternoon or evening and start drinking. But towards the end, that last Friday, I woke up, I got some correspondence via email that I didn't like. And I said, that's it. I'm drinking. And I
Wow.
just started chugging the wine
Hmm.
and I started drunk dialing. I'm sure you've never done that, but I started drunk dialing anybody that would listen
Yeah.
and called the neighbors, told them what I thought of their wives, called
Hmm.
friends, told them what I thought of them,
Yeah.
called the president of the company, the CEO, the vice president of human resources, anybody that would listen. And I have
Hmm.
no idea what happened that day. All I know is I was in a blackout and I have no idea what happened that day. And so when my husband got home, his name's Daniel. He's the love of my life.
Hmm.
He said, I don't really remember what he said because I was probably already passed out, but one of our friends, party buddies, was a drug and alcohol counselor. And she helped him get me a bed the next day because he said, if you don't go into detox tomorrow, you won't have a job on Monday and you will have divorce papers filed on you on Monday. And so that next day, I ended up going to detox. I had tried AA a few times,
Hmm.
but I only went because I'd been a bad girl the night before. I didn't go because I wanted to be there. And I
Right.
drank on the way to and from. So AA was not something I thought I would do, but it has ended up being the central part of my recovery. So that's just a little bit of the recovery journey started really after that detox. And I have stories from detox and I have so many stories
Me
about
too.
recovery. Yeah, it's
Me
just
too.
crazy. So that's a
Yeah.
little bit about my background.
Thank you for sharing all of that. There was a lot I related to, specifically the reasoning with myself, like in my head, I'll never do this. I'll never, drink in the morning. For me, I ended up drinking before baseball practice, by the end of my alcoholism, which is just, something that I could never even imagine doing. It's just so insane to hide that from people and convince myself that this is somehow going to help me or whatever the reasoning in my head was. It's pure insanity for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about, so you mentioned AA. I too was in and out of AA for a little bit, never really interested in doing the work. Always felt like direction from other people just wasn't something I was receptive to until I was. And I'm curious for you if there was maybe a moment in your early recovery that you realized you couldn't do this journey alone. Maybe you were just ready to embrace AA at this point. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, interestingly enough, so I told you I was like angry and not happy to be there. So many of I probably went
Mhm.
to a half a dozen to a dozen, maybe more AA meetings
Wow.
prior to my bottom that day. And I mean, to the point where, after a meeting, people know who's new and they
Yeah.
would come up to me and say, hey, Wendy, I'm Sally. And that, what's your name? Or, they wouldn't say, hey, Wendy, they'd say, hey, I'm Sally, what's your name? And I'd be like, I thought this was anonymous. Like, I just didn't want to even tell them my name. And there was a beginners meeting that we would go to and they'd go around the room. And my husband took me to my first several meetings and they'd go around the room and you'd say your sobriety date, you know, um, if you had a sponsor, if you had a home group and those type of things. And they would get to me and I would talk. I wouldn't engage with the group at all. My husband would be like, "Yeah, she's with me." So that was really just crazy when I look back at it. What made me make the decision was I'm in detox. I don't think I need to be there. I don't think I'm physically addicted. I'm only in there to get out of trouble. Get me back
Yeah.
my job, get me back my husband. I'll be fine. Day two, you shuffle up to the little nurse's counter and they get you your little medicine to detox you off the alcohol. And I walk up to get my little cup of medicine, and the nurse says, "You still shaking, honey?" And I said, shaking, like, looked at her like she was crazy, like indignant. And I was like, no. And she took a white piece of paper and she put it on my hands and they shook ever so slightly. And she said, "Yeah, you got a couple more days." And that was the chink in my armor that I needed to realize that I was physically addicted
Yeah.
and that there was something seriously wrong with me. I knew at that point in my heart that I had a problem with drinking. I just didn't think I was bad enough for the whole journey. I just thought I'll get out of trouble. I'll cool out. I'll be fine. I've got strong willpower. I'll get through this. That really helped. And then that scared me. Honestly, that really actually scared me. I thought, crap. And then I started learning a little bit about alcoholism. They had people bring meetings into the detox center, and I recognized a few people that brought a meeting in from that beginner's meeting I mentioned to you.
Mhm.
And I call them my angels because I believe they saved my life. If I hadn't recognized those two people, Shanna and Trey, who are still sober today,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be here sitting here, but they brought a meeting as part of their service work into that detox. And I thought, they're really serious about this thing. They really think this thing works. And so, between being afraid of being physically addicted and that, they do the little aftercare plan where your husband or family comes in and meets with the counselors. And they said, "You got to get a plan. You got to get a plan for when you get out of here."
Mhm.
So I thought, I guess I need to really give this a serious try because what I'm doing is not working. And
Yeah.
at that point, I think the idea was planted that if I picked up a drink, it would set off the allergy, or I don't think I knew it was an allergy at that time, but it would set off me wanting to drink more and more. And I knew that I couldn't just drink one. I knew that I was never a, one or two drink person. So I was willing to go ahead and try the whole AA route. And um, I started going to meetings and begrudgingly sat there at first. That changed pretty rapidly, but at first I didn't want to be there.
Mhm. Yeah. Totally relate to that. It really wasn't until I felt that real shame and guilt that we hear a lot in the rooms that I was really open to like giving AA a try. And all I was doing before that was building resentment against the program when I was being told to go to these meetings when I was 19, 20, and didn't believe I was an alcoholic, didn't believe the allergy thing, thought that was the most ridiculous, way of framing alcoholism was calling it an allergy. Because for me, I have a peanut allergy. Like I know I can't have nuts. I know, but I wasn't able to kind of connect the dots with the alcoholism, but it's so true. I mean, my drinking at this point, I know if I were to go out and drink today, wouldn't last that long. There'd be some form of intervention, probably within 24 hours, whether that's, you know, someone finds out I'm drinking and I don't know, I get arrested, whatever it is. And it's just never going to work for me.
Yeah.
And until I realized that, yeah, all the meetings and then a couple times at treatment, they were just building resentment. And so when I finally felt the shame and guilt, like I said, that this last time and was open to going to AA, I realized how powerful community and connection can be in recovery. Those two things, building a community and staying connected to that community, have, from a general perspective, been the key driving force in my recovery journey. Sponsorship's a part of my journey as well, like AA, of course, working the steps, being of service. Those are all very important things well, but the community and the connection transformative for me. This next question that I want to ask you is, what other things do you integrate into your week or your routine to keep recovery a priority?
Once I decided to give this journey a shot,
Hmm.
they say a lot of us are kind of all or nothing. And I wanted to get the job back. I wanted to fix the marriage. I wanted all those things. I became willing to do what it took.
Hmm.
And I was told in the detox that you really needed to get a schedule because you were going to have some time on your hands. And I was out of work for 6 to 8 weeks. They told me I couldn't come back. I was mad. I was like, "What do you mean I can't come back?" Because I went and ended up talking to people at work and saying, I can you know work during the day and I can go to this intensive outpatient program at night and I
Yeah.
can work. And they were like, "No, no, Wendy, you need to go ahead and stay out of work for 6 to 8 weeks and take care of yourself." And so
Mhm.
once that was established, I mean, I was paranoid. I thought that people were bugging my phone. Like, I was crazy. I was just, I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew that my job at that point was to get sober,
Yeah.
and I was willing to give it a try. And my sister was sober and she was doing well. And she had told me that AA was great. And so at that point, I was actually willing to start like talking to people and do what I needed to do. Um, many, many things were planted in me at the beginning of sobriety because I had a very strong uh, home group. The
Mm.
meetings I went to meetings at all time of day and night because honestly, when you're getting sober, you have time on your hands. You don't know what else to do with yourself. You're trying to get from hour to hour and just not drink.
Mhm.
So I got a schedule. I made a schedule. I did like an index card every morning of what my schedule was going to look like. I did it
Yep.
a couple of days in advance. I was told to schedule my meeting first, schedule my
Mhm.
sobriety first, and everything else would come around that. I
Yep.
finally, about a weekend, walked up to a gentleman. It was an older gentleman who had chaired the beginners meeting and asked him how could I find a sponsor. At this point, I was already in that IOP program at night. It was like from 6 to 9, Monday through Thursday. And, I started learning about the disease of alcoholism and learning, what it would, how it was affecting my body. And that once I put one drink in me, I couldn't stop. I got thirstier. And I,
Right.
I actually really I needed the science behind that. I needed to learn that the chemistry of my body does
Mhm.
not process alcohol like a normal person does. And that really, really helped. So he recommended me talk to a woman. I went up to her. She said, I will get you a sponsor. She said, Becky here is going to be your temporary sponsor. Becky had 6 months. She said she's gonna answer your calls. You're gonna talk to her for the next few days until I find somebody. She
Yep.
actually assigned me my sponsor. We're both from the great state of Maine, which was very unusual. I live
Yep.
in South Carolina. I live in Charleston, South Carolina.
Mhm.
And my sponsor, Judith, has been my sponsor since the beginning of my sobriety, which is very unusual. Most people do some switcherooskies, and
Yeah.
I've never found it necessary to switch. That woman who told me she'd find me a sponsor is my grand sponsor, and she's been in my life for a long time. And she's since moved to California, but we're still very close. So I got a sponsor. We started working the steps. Every week we met, we went over, we read, we went through some step work together. I learned more from her. I went to a lot of meetings. I was told to call 3 alcoholics a day to have that connection. I thought that was really stupid. I didn't want to talk to people that I didn't know. I had
Right.
no desire to get to know, other women in the program, but I was told I needed to do that.
Yeah.
And what I just didn't know is the why behind that. No, we make these connections so that when we are in a pinch, that person will answer the phone, or we
Right.
get into a challenge in our life where we're going through something hard, maybe a loved one who's dying of cancer or something like that. And you might say to your tribe, "Hey, if you see my call come up, try to answer me because, I got something going on." But I learned to kind of get that tribe that I didn't want. I had a a best friend that we are still best friends today, who got sober a couple weeks after I did. She struggled for about 6 months,
Mhm.
and then she got sober 6 months later, and she's had the same sobriety date as well. And so we've remained very close. I was told service work, sign up to greet at the meeting, do coffee, do something. And then because of those treatment meetings, Connor, I wanted to start doing that. And I think at the time we had a sobriety suggestion of around 90 days or something. I don't know. Different groups, uh, want to do different things for taking treatment meetings or things like that. So I started doing that and giving back. Today, my life is still very ritualistic. I get up in the morning. First thing I do is sit, read my meditations, pray. I don't meditate as much as I used to, but there are times where I meditate more and I do some meditative things like gardening. Um, I get in my pool and I meditate. So there's some things like that. But I do my prayer and meditation. I do some form of exercise a lot of different mornings. And then I'm a morning meeting goer. So my home group has been East Cooper Sunrise since the beginning. And when I got there were 7 people. And it was in that church Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The church then had a challenge and had some groups had to leave because they had neighbors complaining that there were too many cars all hours of the day. So we
Yeah.
moved to a different location and a different location. We've now moved 3 or 4 times, but we've been at the same church campus, I want to say since around 2012. We were upstairs, then we were down in the basement, and now we're over in the fellowship hall. And it's a literature based group. So every day of the week is some different form of literature that we're reading or using as a guide. And we grew from 7 members to most days now we are 75 to 100 people in that meeting.
Wow.
And that is simply amazing to me.
That's
And I owe that all to the people that came after me and continued to stay sober, get sober, work the steps, and have strong sobriety. And now that meeting is sought out by newcomers because they know that if they go there, there's a really good chance they're going to get a good sponsor and go through the steps and have that spiritual awakening and find recovery. Um, so those are some things that I do on a daily basis. I take meetings to jails. I always say for me as part of my recovery, and I can only give you my experience. I don't
Yeah.
know what other people decide to do. I want to be working with 1 or 2 women in the big book um, at all times.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to take 1 or 2 people through the steps. I go, I try to go someplace once a month I don't want to end up. So I go to jail at least once a month. I
I like
take meetings to treatment centers, one or the other. And then we started a little meeting near my home. I moved about 30 miles south of my home group and
Mhm.
I still go to it several days a week. But the little meeting we started, kind of out in the country and there's not a lot of sober alcoholics out here.
Right.
So there's 3 sober houses near me, and one of them is an all women's facility. And on Thursday nights, anywhere between 10 and 20 women show up on what we call the druggy buggy. They come in on the bus and they show up, and we change the format of that meeting to a beginner's meeting for them. And it's a
Cool.
safe place for them to ask questions and for us to talk about the first 3 steps of sobriety. So in some ways that's almost like a treatment meeting because it's not all about those women. It's a regular AA meeting, but
Yeah.
because of the experiences of those women and we watch them transform in 30 days from scared to death to, I think I can go home and give this thing a try. It has been life changing for all of the home group members to see those women come in and get a lot out of it. Sobriety is really the greatest gift I never wanted. I came in kicking and screaming. I stayed to try to get my stuff back. I stayed to get out of trouble.
Mhm.
And then what happened was I came in and did the work. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is I was very agnostic. I did not want anything to do with the God part. Nothing. I mean, I debated my sponsor over step 3 for a few weeks.
Mm.
She finally just said, Wendy, let's stop debating and let's just do the steps and let's see what happens. And what I can tell you is through working those steps, I have been contacted. I do have a higher power today that I talk to all the time, but I'm not as godlike as, I'm not as into the whole, uh, I'm not into religion, organized religion at all.
Mhm.
And I'm not into that part of it as much as maybe some others are, but I know that something is keeping me sober. And I know that there's something much larger than me because I cannot make the sun rise. I cannot go to the edge of the ocean and stop the waves from coming in. And I
Mhm.
can't stop the leaves from turning. And that's really all I needed to know about that.
Right.
So today, recovery is beautiful. We rebuilt that marriage, and that is miraculous. He doesn't drink, and in fact, if I had more time, I'd tell you some stories about my family,
Yeah.
but, it's pretty incredible to see who no longer drinks in my family, and I have some incredible stories about amends and what happened with some amends that I went through and some different things that
Mhm.
have happened to me along the way, and with sponsees, like being a part of sponsees' lives and watching them evolve is the greatest gift to me, like being able to watch them transform. So,
Yeah.
I went from this woman who was full of guilt, shame, remorse on a daily basis, didn't want to leave, was suicidal,
Mhm.
wanted to get out of trouble to I have a life today I wouldn't want to take a drink over. And today I have what I like to call an extraordinary ordinary life. And I don't know how that happens. There's magic here. There's magic in the we. There's magic in the rooms. But I know that on a daily basis, I wake up with untreated alcoholism and I've got to treat it. So I still go to probably 5 to 6 meetings a week because I want to. And because I also want to give back. I want to learn, but I want to give back. And I stay very, very connected to AA, my sponsor, my sponsees, women's retreats, very, very involved locally and throughout the Carolinas. It's a beautiful thing that I really have got to say I didn't expect. I never expected the dividends that I've received from one day at a time, showing up, suiting up, and giving more than I've received.
Mhm.
My edges have softened. My career's better than it ever has been. My marriage is better than it's ever been. My relationships are better than they've ever been. And that took a lot of work over the years to help correct some of those character defects and things that were standing in my way and blocking me from God. But I'm glad I did the work, and there's always work to do if you want to. But today I'm very I have a lot of peace, which is really what I was looking for when I came in. So
Mhm.
that's a little bit more about my much longer winded response to what my daily life looks like. But that's a bit of what my daily life looks like.
That was great. Thank you for all that insight. I'm curious if you have a slogan or a quote or a saying that you've heard. Maybe it's in AA, maybe it's from a
Hmm.
book you've read that you carry with you in the back of your head. For me, it's and I've said it a few times now on these interviews, but it's always with me. It's that my best thinking got me here. And I remember when I heard that and it really resonated with me. I realized that I was going to need to listen to others, get a sponsor, take direction, do the steps, and not try and control my life and live in self. And it's really powerful. It's a simple, saying. And I'm curious if you have something along those lines or similar that you would want to share with people.
I do. I actually have two. One you've probably heard, and one you probably haven't. And it's so funny that you should mention that because that's one of my least favorite sayings.
Is it?
And
Oh,
yeah, because it was my ego.
mm,
And it was like my best thinking got me here, like I'm a dummy.
yeah,
Okay. Well, no, I had to then turn it around and say, no, my best thinking got me here. Like I finally made a decision to be here. So my
yeah,
best thinking actually did get me here. And so I had to turn that kind of negative around and that really
yeah.
helped me. But
Nice.
that's funny that you should
I
mention that.
see what you're
My
saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
my two favorites is and I was just telling somebody the other day I don't hear this that much anymore. It works if you work it. because I really feel like if you put the energy in as much en we all spent so much time chasing the bottle,
Mm,
finding ways to get it, finding ways to hide it,
yeah,
finding ways to drink the way we wanted to drink. If we chase sobriety the way that we chased the bottle,
that's correct.
like, it works if you work it. So I tell folks that are maybe having a challenge in their life and they can't seem to get free, if you want to work around that step and you want to work around that, like there are people that will help you through that. Contrary action has been a, a pivotal part of my sobriety and doing the opposite of what I think I want to do, especially when it comes to changing your personality and having a different outlook on life or a different outlook on a relationship. Because my first thought and the way that I want to react if I don't pause is snarky, bitchy,
Yeah,
um, it's irritable, it's all those things. And through contrary action, I'm able to not behave that way. And then I get the reward of, oh, I didn't behave that way. And look how well this turned out.
right.
And then it makes me want to do it again. So it works if you work it is one. And the other one that I love that I hang my hat on is discipline is the price of peace. And for me, it is all about having the discipline to do what I might not want to do or what I need to do on a daily basis to have the life I have today. And discipline gets a bad rap. It's this word that people don't like.
Yeah,
But really, what it is it's a ritualistic approach to a better way of living.
yeah.
And so, discipline is the price of peace, is for me what works really well in my life today.
I have never heard that one before, and it is incredibly powerful. I mean, that's applicable to anything, I think, you know? Anything worth having does not come easy, and
Yeah.
discipline is the answer. I
Yeah.
think that's going
Well,
to be go-to, quote or saying here on out. I'll
absolutely.
look
Well, and I
a good
mean,
one.
if you think about it, um, we always talk about how he who dies with the most toys wins, or those types of things, right? Everyone's trying to get the property, the prestige, the money, all the material stuff. But really, when we came into sobriety, what do we want? I want peace. I am
Yeah,
so disturbed. I cannot get out of my skin fast enough. Like, I cannot get that drink fast enough. And I just want peace.
yeah,
So, if that was always the goal, then I need to do things that make that happen. And so now, today, I say, listen, he who goes to bed the least disturbed wins.
100%,
And
100.
that is what I'm looking for today is how can I be the least disturbed? I don't have road rage anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong, my life isn't all, rainbows and butterflies, but I'm able to handle things today in a better way than I ever thought possible. And I always thought serenity was this elusive word that I
Mhm.
could never reach. When really serenity is just a clear eyed recognition of a way to go through life with all of the tools to be able to handle whatever comes my way, good or bad.
Mhm.
And so I have serenity today. I have every tool I need to handle whatever comes my way today. And I know that. I know that today. So um, I love sobriety. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I would absolutely not be where I am today without having given this thing a chance and
Mhm.
just following some simple directions, even when I didn't want to.
Yeah,
And it's been a really great journey. And I also one thing I want to say, because this has been kind of I ruminate on things. I'll get a concept and I'll think about it for a while. But one of the things that's really been coming into my mind a lot lately is the power and the seasons of long-term sobriety.
mm,
I know I'm in my teenage years right now. I'm coming up on 16 years. I never thought I could get 30 days.
yeah,
But there's something very special about those different seasons of sobriety. The 0 through 5 is a different feeling than the 5 through 10. When you get to double digits, something changes. I don't know what it is. Something changes in the way in what happens. Like, you don't get sponsees as frequently because the sponsees are all looking for the people, that are, 3 to 5 years or
Yeah.
whatever. They're, it's interesting. I still do get sponsees, but it's a different phase of sobriety. But what I would say is I highly recommend long-term sobriety because of all the changing that I've been able to do through the relationships in my life and how much softer and easier my life is today. It's so much easier to handle than it was at even 10 years. And that's all because of the tools of this program. So I highly recommend it.
Amazing. That's a really good way to wrap this up. The seasons of sobriety. I think about myself. I'm just over 2 years in, and it excites me when people with a lot more time than I do talk about the shift in perspective or just the way you feel through those different, periods of long-term sobriety. And yeah, I mean, God willing, I will experience that in the future. But for
Yeah.
today, I'm do everything I can to stay sober.
Yeah. If we just stay disciplined and stay on the path, just
Yeah.
stay on the path, just don't leave. We always say like keep coming back. It works if you work. No, just stay. If
Yeah.
people would just stay and stay true to the ritual discipline that they had when they first got sober, we'd have stadiums filled with people that, you know, are sober. I ran into a guy this morning at a meeting, and he shared that he had 18 years of sobriety and went back out for a few years, and he was back. I didn't know him. He was from a different area. He was traveling on vacation, but I talked to him after the meeting, and he shared very honestly about it. And he said, just what happens is you start working the steps backwards. You stop being engaged. You stop
Mhm.
calling people. You stop praying. You stop meditating. You stop going to meetings. All those things kind of slip away. And those were all the real ritualistic disciplines that we had at the beginning of sobriety. And before you know it, it's easy to pick up that drink.
Yeah.
So I do whatever it takes to be on the path on recovery because every action I take is either moving me closer to a drink or further away. And I
Right.
have to remember that. So, yeah,
Right.
I love it.
Really good stuff. Thank you for coming on, Wendy. This was a great conversation. I don't think I have much else to add. We'll just wrap it up there.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you so much, Connor, and good luck with IWI. I think it's a great thing that you all are doing. And if I can be of any service to you in any way, happy to help. I've got a nephew in recovery who's younger, probably around your age, and I've got lots of connections. We'd love to help you out, but keep doing what you guys are doing. And if I get to Austin anytime soon, I'll look you up. But to
Yeah.
Charleston or any of those places,
Oh,
we've always got connections. I tell people, they say, "Well, do you know somebody here?" I said, "I,
yeah.
I probably do, but if I don't, I probably know somebody who knows somebody." So
Right.
just be prepared that we're everywhere, all around the world,
Yep.
and it's great to have these connections. So thanks for what you do.
Amazing. Thank you.